So what we all feared would happen did in fact happen, with Jair Bolsonaro becoming Brazil's new president with 55% of the vote over Fernando Haddad. Now, Bolsonaro is a far right-wing fascist. He has openly discussed his desire for a military dictatorship. This is another win in this global fascism movement. Now, we are in a situation where we have to rely on our media to properly educate people on what is going on. But what's the media doing? Let me give you the worst example. And this is from, I hate to say it, CBC News, who it's a Canadian broadcaster that isn't always like this, but has treaded towards this this idea of this both sides. Oh, yeah, we have to call out both sides equally as if there are equal arguments, even when there aren't. So let me show you the example and the article that I'm going to go through. So this was the tweet. CBC News Alerts tweeted out, Brazil's new president-elect, Jair Bolsonaro, is a right-winger who leans towards more open markets. This could mean fresh opportunities for Canadian companies looking to invest in the resource-rich country. Yeah. Now, this blew up on Twitter. And I'm going to get to some of the responses to this tweet and this article because there are some fantastic breakdowns of what CBC did wrong here. But first, I want to go through this actual article. So the author of this article, who got a lot of heat, rightfully so, I think, for this article, he tweeted out, for people losing their mind over this tweet, read the actual article. Death threats always welcome, but only from people who have actually read the piece. Okay, let's do it. Let's read this article, because apparently the article is very, very fair. Let's check it out. The headline here, what a far-right Bolsonaro presidency in Brazil means for Canadian businesses. And look just below, quote, miners could benefit from relaxed regulations, as environmentalists fear growth plans will destroy the Amazon. Right off the bat, you have this bullshit both sides argument. Oh, well, miners could benefit from the relaxed regulations, but those environmentalists, they fear that it may destroy the Amazon. Miners and environmentalists, who I would call everybody else, are not two equal positions. You have, on one side, it is not just the environmentalists. So when you have a headline like this, or a subheading like this that says, oh, the environmentalists are worried that the Amazon may be destroyed, the images that come up in people's minds are, oh, the environmentalists, you know, the people in Greenpeace, the kale shake eating people. Yeah, those crazy people, they're so worried about the Amazon. No. Anybody with half a brain that has looked into this understands that this would be devastating for everyone. The Amazon rainforest is vital to our ecosystem. If you destroy that, I mean, there's no telling what kind of damage that will do to our climate. Not to mention damage to the indigenous people that live in these regions. So let's go deeper into this article. So here's a piece here. Critics at home and abroad have lambasted the former paratrooper for his homophobic, racist, and misogynistic statements and his support for Brazil's military dictatorship that ruled from 1964 to 1985. Supporters backed his pledge to crack down on crime and battle government corruption in South America's largest economy. Now, this is the most critical part out of this entire piece of Bolsonaro. And even in this paragraph, it doesn't tell you the whole story. So they say here, oh, he wants to crack down on crime. Wants to, quote, battle government corruption. Okay, but how? He would. So let's go through some of this. Military-inspired approach to governing. That's what Bolsonaro wants. A military dictatorship. He wants to reinstate the death penalty. And he himself volunteered to carry out the executions. Funny how that is missing in that paragraph. Oh yeah, he wants to battle government corruption by personally executing people. Shield police from punishment when they kill someone. He says, quote, they should be celebrated. If the police kill somebody, oh, it's just a bum. If a police officer kills someone, they must be a criminal, and that person should be celebrated. That police officer should be celebrated for carrying out that killing on their own. Forget investigations, forget due process. No, if a police officer killed somebody, then it was the right thing to do. This is Bolsonaro, cutting down on corruption, on crime. He wants to also lower the legal gun owning age to 16. Because, you know, it's not enough for adults to be killing other people. We also need kids to be killing other people. And let's look at his positions on drugs alone. I mean, there's so much more to go into. It was touched on in that brief paragraph where he was criticized for a second about his misogynistic statements, his homophobic statements. But let's just go on. Let's stick to his hard take on crime. So his positions on drugs here. This tweet from Release Drugs. Police should kill trafficking suspects. Drug use makes people gay. Legalizing cannabis benefits rapists. Military must enforce drug law in schools. The military must enforce the drug law in schools. And Duterte drug war is the right thing. Which, of course, the Filipino leader shooting and killing people that do drugs and drug dealers. That's the right approach to drugs. Not to mention everything else I just read. So let me go to another paragraph in this piece. This is when it starts to get sociopathic. For a Canadian business, a Bolsonaro presidency could open up new investment opportunities, especially in the resource sector, finance, and infrastructure, as he has pledged to slash environmental regulations in the Amazon rainforest and privatize some government-owned companies. Now, the article is littered with these sorts of lines. The majority of the article is discussing how business interests will be impacted by this win. Now, I'm going to get into the problem with that, but first I want to read this. This is the last paragraph in the article, and it sums up really the whole feeling of the entire piece. With nearly 60% of the world's public mining companies listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, losses for the Amazon rainforest under Bolsonaro could spell big gains for Canadian investors. That right there is everything wrong with journalism right now. We are facing a fascist uprising worldwide. But that gets lost in all of this. Oh yeah, but you know, in the short-term capital gains might make some money on this before you're all fucking dead. It's unbelievable. This both sides bullshit that completely ignores any context at all. Now, as I said earlier, he got a lot of hell on Twitter. So let me read a few good responses here. So this was from Andre Dumas. Your widely irresponsible article mostly brushes aside the context of our current global political climate, with barely a flick at dissenting voices. You spent almost the entirety of the piece fawning over how Canadian firms and investors can benefit from a potential genocide. This from Ben Norton. This whitewashing of Brazil's new violent fascist leader, Bolsonaro, shows the true face of the quote-unquote liberal CBC, which really acts as a voice for Canadian business, i.e. capitalist elites, who always prefer extremist far-right authoritarianism over the left. Exactly. He got, this writer got absolutely destroyed. And you know what? I have a semi-defense of him. Even though this was a terrible piece. Ultimately, I think the problem here is how many journalists are trained. They're trained into this both sides mentality. What they view, what they are taught is being objective is not in fact being objective. Being objective would be looking at the facts and what do the facts tell us. What they're actually doing is being neutral, finding the middle position and acting like that is the fair position. But it's not. So I'm going to get more into that in a second. But I saw this, there's a series of tweets here from Adam Davidson who does a fantastic breakdown. I'm just going to read a few of them here. But a great breakdown on why this both sidesism is just complete crap in this day and age. So he tweets out, both sidesism operates at every level, from the highest and most noble aspirations and core identity of journalists to the most cowardly, trying to solve a quick problem on deadline level. It is shoved into the brains of newbies and a source of enormous pride for veterans. Both sidesism determines who gets hired, who gets promoted or fired, how editorial and business decisions are made. It is so fundamental that there is no mechanism, no language to truly critique it from within, and little ability to adjust it when it makes no sense. We journalists need to do something truly hard. We have to look at our core principles. I don't think we need to abandon them. I still think both sidesism is a good practice in normal times, if there ever will be normal times again, but they are destructive now. Exactly. Fascism is not on an equal level to environmental protections. Fascism is fascism. Calling both sides when one side is a far right-wing fascist that would love a military dictatorship, having that on one side and saying, oh, well, you know what, on the bright side, some people might make some money. So you know what? Who knows? Maybe it's a good thing he won. Maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know. That's not what journalism should be. You have to look at objective reality. What is the best thing for people? Markets and money don't exist in a vacuum. We are engaged in these markets. They affect us. There is no market without people. So when you have global fascism, you're killing off hordes of people. You have military rule. You discriminate based on gender, based on orientation. There is no argument on the other side of that. Fascism is just wrong. So if you're arguing anything else, then you're doing a disservice to your readers. Now, to put it another way, so this is something that I see on a deeper level, or maybe not a deeper level, but on another level in US politics. So there's this argument against universal health care. Oh, universal health care, it's going to cost too much money. Again, this is both sidesism. There is no universal health care versus what? Universal health care or 45,000 people a year die from lack of access to health care? People that have medical bankruptcies? People that are tied to their employer feel like that they can't leave their job because that's how they have their insurance? I mean, it's an unending list of shit that people have to deal with when you don't have universal health care. An actual argument or an actual both sides for universal health care would be, how do we apply it? Should there also be a private market? How would that private market operate in this universal system? Because we have already realized on a worldwide level, other countries, like my country, Canada, we have a universal healthcare system and it works. It is the solution. The only question now is, what is the best way to implement it? Because all these countries have their own variety, their own way of implementing universal healthcare. So it's simply a matter of looking at what is the best solution, what has been proven so far, what can we try that hasn't been tried. So again, this both sidesism can't be applied to every issue. You have to look at it objectively. How does it affect actual people's lives? Now, to give you an extreme example of this both sides mentality, this is from New York Times. Urges goodwill by Jews for Nazis. Professor Cadbury of Society of Friends says it will gain more will gain more than will hate. Decries boycott as war. Dr. Goldson tells session of rabbis a minority must not use tactics of foes. So what they're saying here, I know I feel like my pacing reading these headlines is off, but is this headline. So this article goes into it. I'll link to this article below my video if you want to look deeper at this piece from 1934, where an American professor urged that Jews be civil to the Nazis. And how did that work out? So what you see in this article is a lot of what you see today with Donald Trump and his supporters. Now, look, I'm not directly comparing Trump to Hitler, but it's very similar in terms of how the media, or at least portions of the media back then, were trying to talk about Hitler. Saying, oh, well, sure, he's saying some crazy things, but you know what? If you're going to be mean to them, it's just going to get worse. So you should be nice to the Nazis, and then we can work with them. Otherwise, you're going to push them away. You can't reason with that sort of mentality. When you have right-wing fascism, where their whole purpose here is to take rights away from people, is to push white nationalism, destroy diversity, even though countries like America and Canada are built on diversity, it's obvious that they are using the guise of free speech as a way to push their agenda. They complain, oh, you have to let us speak because of free speech. You have to treat us fairly, because if you're not treating me fairly, then you know what? I'm going to get more angry. It's going to make things worse. No. Look what happened to Alex Jones. People used to talk about Alex Jones all the time. Now he's gone. I haven't heard a peep from him. Boycotts work. Deplatforming works. Now, I know this is kind of off in a new territory that gets away from the CBC piece. But the point here is you can't look at every issue as both sides, as just, you know, an exchange of ideas. We're just airing it all out. Oh yeah, sure, there's fascism. Sure, there's socialism, or there's social democracy. But you know what? I don't know what the answer is, because some people might make some money if it's fascism. So, you know what? Sure, you might die. Maybe there's no health care. Maybe we kill all the gays. But you know what? Someone's going to make some money. So, you know, free markets. You have to look at the effect on society, on people. If you rip away that perspective from journalism, you end up with pieces like this in CBC, where it just seems like a robot wrote this piece. So the root of the problem here is how journalists are taught to cover these issues. They're taught to cover both sides, or do this both sides mentality. But when you're in a situation like this, when it is clear that whether it's Bolsonaro, whether it's Donald Trump, it's clear that when you're looking at the objective reality, that they are wrong, to not call that out in every piece, you're just not doing your job. And this CBC writer is a victim of this mentality of this both sidesism that he is taught. But he's also, because of people like him that don't challenge the system, don't think outside of it, we continue to see this rise of fascism in the face of people that, look, I don't know what's going to happen in Brazil. It could be as bad as we all think it could be. It could be worse. Or maybe he'll walk it all back. No one knows. But if you take him at his word, take Bolsonaro at his word, it's not going to be good. And for you to report that as, well, sure, it may suck for some people, but you're going to make some money off it, is just really disgusting.